Hello everyone and welcome to Blogging Theology, and today I am delighted to talk to Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. You're most welcome, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you, Paul.
And welcome to London. We're both in this amazing hotel near an amazing park, so it's fantastic to see you in person for a change.
Thank you.
That's great, fantastic. For those who don't know, if there are any such people left in the world, Sheikh Hamza is an American Muslim scholar and co-founder of the Zaytuna College in Berkeley, California, the first accredited Muslim liberal arts college in the United States. He studied the Islamic sciences extensively in the Muslim world, particularly in Mauritania, the UAE and Morocco. He is a leading figure in the global Islamic revival and has translated and authored several influential works, including one of my favorites, The Purification of the Heart, also The Creed of Imam al-Tahawi, and most recently, and this is the topic of today's podcast, the Hamziya of Imam al-Busiri, an ode in the praise of the best of creation. And this is my copy of this most amazing book there, what I'll link to in the description below, inshallah. So I'll sort of read, if I may, just a few paragraphs from the introduction to this extraordinary poem that you have translated and you've written commentary on and you've written the introduction to in the book. And just want to read these words. After the Quran and the prophetic sayings, the highest level of eloquence any Arab aspires to achieve lies in poetry. Thus, poets in subsequent generations invariably expressed their love for the Prophet in marvels of verse that poured forth from their tongues and pens like pearls unbound. Among these, Imam al-Busiri stands out as the most renowned. In stunning stanzas, the poem masterfully captures the beauty and perfection of the Prophet, his character, his virtues, his miracles, and salient events in his unparalleled and momentous life. And then you say, in beautiful words, which I just want to stress, this is the quintessence of poetry, penetrating human insight that a real poet conveys through words powerful enough to reach another's ear, enabling the listener to realize the same insight. End quote. Very, very beautifully expressed yourself.
Thank you.
And I can completely identify reading poets back through the centuries and having this human heart-to-heart contact with them is a real pleasure, actually, one of the great pleasures of reading poetry. But anyway, back to our Imam al-Busiri. When did he live and why did you translate this particular poem by him?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. First of all, it's very nice to meet you finally in person. I've seen several of your interviews, and I think you're doing really wonderful work to just help illuminate people in these dark times, different perspectives on the faith, and quite a broad spectrum also, because I think so many people look on Islam as this monolithic phenomenon, not realizing that it's a very nuanced religion that has a great deal of difference of opinion and beautifully honored by our great scholars, the idea of adab al-ikhtilaf, that we actually recognize human differences and human perception, that we're all filtering the world through our own backgrounds. In fact, the Arabic word for difference, which is khilaf, and ikhtilaf, the same word khalfiya, which means background, where you come from, what's your khalfiya. And so a lot of differences of opinion, if somebody grew up in very difficult circumstances, they have a very different view of the world than somebody who grew up in very privileged circumstances. So Imam al-Busairi is probably one of the most, if not the most notable poet, scholar of the post-early period. I mean, there are some great scholars at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, poets, scholars like Hassan ibn Thabit, obviously. And I think he lived at the same time, interestingly enough, as St. Thomas Aquinas, who you're very familiar with. So that period is a very interesting period for both Christianity and Islam. It's also a period of the Crusades. So he's living during the time of the Crusades.
Yeah.
He actually dies the year after Palestine is liberated from the Crusaders. So he lived, he was 18 years old when Jerusalem was reconquered by the Crusaders after being liberated in 1187 by Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. So he sees it reconquered and then re-liberated. So it's a very interesting life. It was a period of a lot of dissension, not dissimilar to our own time. He lived in a time of a lot of disunity in the Muslim community. There was also great shakeups. The Mongol invasion was happening, so you had all these Central Asians that were coming down. The really interesting group of almost like Ronin. I call them Ronin-like people that come down, and they actually end up liberating Al-Quds, these Central Asian warriors.
Yeah.
So it's a very fascinating time. He was interestingly enough, he was a scholar of comparative religion, which is unusual in our tradition. You do have, because the Quran deals with other religions, you do have scholars that did focus on comparative religion. Al-Biruni is a great example of that. Asfarayini, there are several.
Yeah, yeah. So why did you choose this particular poem? Because there's another more famous one.
The Burda.
Yeah, that I've read about in your introduction. But you chose this much longer and less well-known
Well, I
poem.
did. I translated the Burda and published it
Right.
after 9/11. I think it was around 2002, maybe. The Burda and the Hamziya in the scholastic class, they're just quoted constantly. I mean, you just hear them quoted, especially
People memorize them.
They memorize them.
Yeah.
Pretty much every student of knowledge in Mauritania knows at least the Burda by heart.
Amazing.
And many of them know, if not the whole Hamziya, they know large segments of the Hamziya. In the Sus, which is in southern Morocco, where there's still a very strong what's called a mahdara tradition, because in Mauritania they have these mahadar, which we call madrasa. So they call them mahdara. In the Sus, they actually do a tasbih, which is they divide the Burda and the Hamziya into 7 parts, and they do it every morning and every evening. So they do the Hamziya in the morning and the Burda in the afternoon after Maghrib. So they do the Hizb of Quran.
Right.
And so they'll finish the Quran entirely each month, but they'll do the Hamziya and the Burda, they'll do a khatam each week.
Amazing.
And that still goes on. They're like birds, they come together at Maghrib and Isha, at Maghrib and Fajr.
So, but the Hamziya covers a vast number of topics, doesn't it? It's not, say, just about the Prophet's life. I mean, that obviously will be more than enough.
Sure.
But it is very, operates on many different levels and many different focuses. So what's going on there? Is it really expressing his encyclopedic knowledge, or what's his perspective?
You know, I think Imam al-Busairi, he had a very obviously intense spiritual experience. He had, and I mentioned this in the introduction, he was, one of the things that many poets in the Arabic tradition did was they lived by their wits. So they would write poems for notable people, and then obviously we were at Dr. Johnson's house the other day, and one of, in his dictionary, he says a patron is a scoundrel who's paid in flattery. And so, you know, these poets had patrons, and I think he had a lot of regrets about having to do that.
Because he did that as a younger person.
As a younger person, exactly.
He created some of this poetry to flatter a ruler or a patron, and he bitterly repented of it
He
later
repented
on.
from it, but he did have a stroke, and he was healed while he was writing the Burda. And he attributes the healing.
Tell us about that. Did he have a dream or a vision?
He had a dream. The Prophet ﷺ put his Burda, which is something, it's still done. It's called Ilqa al-Khirqa, which is when a sheikh or a scholar, he puts a Burda on. And so you see the shawl, like a lot of people wear the shawl.
Right.
That's the idea. That shawl is actually called a Burda in Arabic. And so it was a very common thing for a sheikh to give the burda. So the Prophet ﷺ, when Ka'b ibn Zuhair wrote his famous Banat Su'ad, which is an amazing poem praising the Prophet ﷺ, but it's also about his divorce with Jahiliyyah. So Su'ad is a personification of Jahiliyyah. So he talks about divorcing Su'ad, this beautiful woman, and that he loved deeply, but he realizes that the relationship can't continue, and then he ends up praising the Prophet ﷺ. So that became a really one of the most important praise poems in that early period. But the mantle, the idea, the Prophet ﷺ, when he finished it, he actually gave Ka'b the mantle, this burda, and it became a tradition.
Yeah. And he actually received healing through this.
He was healed. He woke up in the morning healed from it. Yeah, and these are confirmed karamat. So they're not things that are just. This isn't like hagiography that you find in a lot of traditions.
Embellished and stuff. No, this is verified.